Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Kathy O'Callahan and I'm the Director of Marketing over here at Turn2. First of all and foremost, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Beyond Reviews, Meet Social Q&A. We know you're busy and we appreciate you spending your time with us. We will begin in just a moment, but to let you know if you should have any questions during the course of the webinar, please type them into the box within the GoToWebinar module. If we're unable to answer your question during our time together, we will contact you directly. So, and without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our presenter, George Eberstadt, founder and CEO of Turn2. George is a passionate socializer who likes to ask questions and share answers. And during his presentation, you will learn more about this important e-commerce tool, Social Q&A. George?
Kathy, thanks so much. And let me repeat Kathy's thanks to you all for joining us. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast and good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. So the topic is Social Q&A. It's an exciting new e-commerce tool. A lot of people do think of it as the thing that they add to their e-commerce sites after they've done customer reviews, and when they see that user-generated content and authentic customer dialogue is indeed incredibly effective at growing your business. So I want to spend about 20-25 minutes introducing you to the topic if you're new to it, or maybe sharing some additional insights if you've seen it before, and we'll save some time at the end of our half hour for some questions. So here are the particular questions we're going to address in our discussion of Q&A. What is social Q&A? Why would I want customers to answer my shopper questions? How do I make it work really well? What are some of the traps I need to avoid? What kind of performance can I expect from a system like this? What kind of ROI can I expect it to deliver? And who's doing it? Let me plunge right in. Social Q&A is all about getting shopper questions about your products answered by people who really bought those products from you, and encouraging those dialogues and hosting those dialogues and displaying those dialogues right on your product detail pages and your category pages. And let me show you some examples of what that looks like. Here's the e-commerce site for Yves Saint Laurent Beauty. This is a L'Oreal brand, and you can see I've circled there a utility on the page, get quick answers from other Yves Saint Laurent customers, ask a question, and you can see there's been a lot of dialogue in this particular page. If a shopper clicks on that, an overlay comes up. Here's the way Yves Saint Laurent has styled it. There is a part at the top where a shopper can ask a question, and then below it there's the dialogue that's already happened about the item. So one shopper asked, "I'm very pale and have red undertones. I was wondering which shade would best suit me." And another shopper, Tina S, asked, "I just bought this and I'm not sure how to make the concealer come out of the brush." I'll show you a few more examples just to give a sense of the breadth of application. Adorama is one of the biggest online camera specialists, and you can see they've put the utility right below their reviews stars. Get fast answers from customers, ask a question. They've had 28 questions and 186 answers, and it's interesting to see that, at least on this page, that compares to 7 reviews about this particular item. And if the shopper clicks on that, you can see a differently styled implementation here. The utility at the top again to ask the question, and below it various dialogue that's already happened. Actually at the top, a question from the store, why did you choose this? And then below it, shopper to customer questions. In this case, does the grip work with the Mark III or the Mark II? And here's a different example on GoJane, which is a teen fashion site. Here you can see, interestingly, they don't use reviews because this fashion site gets very fast, has very fast turns of their items. They actually felt that reviews didn't come in fast enough for them, and so they're only using Q&A as their UGC tool. Get fast answers from customers, ask a question, and if a shopper clicks on that, similarly styled for them, questions like, what color did you get and did you like it? And answers, I got the fuchsia dress, it's gorgeous. We ordered the fuchsia color for my daughter, it's pretty and she likes it. Or is this dress too short for a prom? So good questions that encourage social dialogue. And you can actually see the first of those has 13 social answers, and the one below it has 12 social answers. So lots of answers to each of these questions. Now, you might look at this and think, why would I want to have shoppers, my customers, answering shopper questions when I've got my customer support staff standing by, and they're the ones who are going to give the right official answer, and who knows what my customers are going to say. And I think the best way to understand it is to break down the kinds of questions that shoppers ask into different buckets. And when you do, you can start to see that for a lot of different kinds of shopper questions, at least at the product level rather than, say, at the store level, social answers really are often the best. So let's look at it in terms of 3 different kinds of shopper question on a spectrum. At one end, there are questions about peer opinion or taste or real-world experience with the product. In the middle, there are questions that relate to facts about the product or compatibility or intended use, that kind of thing. And then at the other end of the spectrum are questions about shipping or availability or pricing or returns. And when you look at those different kinds of questions that shoppers may have about a product, you see that the appropriate answers can come from different sources. At that left end of the spectrum, where the shopper is really looking for an opinion from peers or real-world experience, those kinds of answers need to be social. That's what the customer is looking for. Only answers from fellow customers are going to be credible there. And in fact, if you don't message the customer through the Q&A interface that they're going to get social answers, most of the time shoppers won't even bother to answer those questions, won't even bother to ask those questions. In the middle of that category of product facts or compatibility or use, those are questions that can often be answered either by the staff or by fellow customers. And you might say, well, better to have staff answers than social answers if there's a choice. But in fact, what you see when you run this kind of system is that often the kind of answer you get from a customer who really bought the item goes way beyond what the question itself asked and beyond what the staff would provide. So in addition to the benefit of reducing staff work, the answers themselves are often just plain better. There is still a role in that category for the staff to check and make sure that the answers are accurate or to supplement them if there are not enough social answers. And then in that third category, shipping, availability, pricing, returns, these are the kind of questions that only the staff can answer. So you need to make sure that those kinds of questions don't go to past customers. They can't answer them. It's not going to work out. And in fact, though, there's some alignment between the tools because there are really, most stores tend to have other tools that are better for answering that kind of question anyway. So for example, live chat or the existing email mechanism for customer support. Besides which, that kind of dialogue typically doesn't need to appear on the product detail page anyway. So let me go through examples of all 3 different kinds of questions and give you some illustrations. Here's the kind of question that really needs a social answer. This is on a site that sells celebrity-inspired jewelry, imitations. And Christopher S. has asked, how durable is this ring? Has anyone had issues with the stone chipping? And here's, this is a nice example because you can compare. Eugene W., who's with the imitation staff, jumped in. He said, hi, Christopher, thanks for your inquiry. We have several 5-star reviews of this ring, like this one from Christina. This ring is so gorgeous, and Christina had lots of nice things to say. We have an excellent 60-day return policy. But compare that, the tone of that and the impact that has on you, to the 6 social answers that follow. Deanna P. says, Christopher, I was just telling someone today how durable the ring was. Mrs. P. says, I'm very satisfied with the ring I purchased, no problems, and I wear it quite a bit. Gail M. says, my wife wears hers every day and has had it for almost a year. She loves it, etc. James V., good ring, sturdy, no problems. Eugene has said basically the same thing as those 6 social answers, but the credibility of the answers from real customers speaking in their own voice is just so much greater. And if Christopher is teetering on the brink of whether to make this purchase or not, it's those social answers more than the one from Eugene that's really going to tip them over. In that middle category, questions that could be answered by the staff or by fellow customers, what you find is that the customer answers often go way beyond what the staff would have said. So here Dave J. has asked on a site called Seattle Coffee Gear that sells espresso machines and high-end coffee makers, what is the largest cup size that will fit between the drip tray and the spout? Now that's a fact question, right? Anyone could jump in. But look at what you get from all these different customer answers, not just the facts about the exact distance from the drip tray to the spout. That's actually me too down there. There's a question about an item I bought, so I chimed in and chipped in with, by the way, we're incredibly happy with this machine. And then below it, Carolyn H. answered the question and chimed in, I love my machine. And Linda R. chimed in, you will love this machine. I highly recommend it. And Robin H., this machine is wonderful. I use it nonstop. And Barbara M. says, I love my machine. And Vihar S. says, by the way, we love our machine. What would the staff person have said? The distance is 3 inches to 4 1/4 inches. So here you're just getting a lot of great sentiment that's really valuable. It's genuinely valuable to the shopper, and it's super valuable to the store as well. Then in that last category, questions like shipping or in stock, warranty, pricing, these are the kind of questions that past customers can't answer, and so they shouldn't be sent to past customers. So what we do see is stores putting this kind of selector up where if the shopper clicks the first button, it's a product question, they'll be taken down the social path. If they click the second button, the system will take them into other paths, like for example, live chat. This is a site called Sprinkler Warehouse that sells lawn irrigation systems. And if you were to click on that live chat button, it would actually summon the live chat right from within the Q&A application, which is exactly what Sprinkler Warehouse wants. If the question is it in stock, they want the customer support person having a real-time dialogue, not an asynchronous dialogue, where they can say, yes, it's in stock, may I take your order? So when you break it down by the different types, you see that there are huge advantages to having customers answer shopper questions. Now, the next question you might have is, how do I make it work? You saw that a lot of those questions were getting a lot of answers, not just one or two, but multiple answers. The secret to that is a model we call active outreach. It basically means you take the question that's coming in from the shoppers, and instead of just doing, what we call post and pray, you email it to people who really bought that item. And you know who they are, you've got the customer records. If you do use customer reviews, you will recognize, the essential truth that if you just post a customer review capability on your site and hope people will come back to the page where they bought to write a review, you're going to be disappointed. The overwhelming number of reviews you get when you send someone an email saying, thanks for your purchase, do you mind submitting a review? The same thing is true for Q&A. You have to take that question and send it to people who bought the item and therefore know how to answer it. I'll show you an example, a few examples of what that can look like. So here's Seattle Coffee Gear again. As I mentioned, it's a fun one for me to demo because before they turned on social Q&A, I was actually a customer of theirs. This is the espresso machine that I bought for my wife for Christmas a year and a bit ago. This is typical positioning. Hi, George. To help make Seattle Coffee Gear a friendly place to shop, we enable shoppers to ask our customers questions about the products they bought. And you can see here Al is looking for an answer to a question he had about the bypass filter. And since I bought this item on December 13th, I'm receiving this question. So to answer it, all I need to do is click that answer question link. And if you go down to the bottom, if I say, I don't really want to answer any more questions, then I can click the click here button, and I won't receive any more questions. Most stores tend to treat this kind of email as a marketing email, and they opt out from the beginning anyone who said they don't want to receive marketing emails from the store. So this is just an incremental opt-out for people who don't want to receive question emails but are still happy to receive marketing emails from the store. Now, one statistic that we've found across the whole network of stores using our system is that Answer Question Link gets an 8% average answer rate. And that is not just on people who open the email, that's of all people who receive the email. If any of you are in the business of sending out emails and trying to bring past customers back to your site, I'm sure you'll recognize an 8% answer rate pretty good. This kind of email just seems to be very well received. In particular, in relation to reviews, people often tell us that they feel in some way that writing a review is all about doing a favor for the store, whereas answering a shopper question is really doing a favor for a peer. And because of that feeling, there's a lot of willingness to come back to the store to answer the question. Now, of course, if you click on Answer Question Link, it brings the past customer back to the store to answer the question. And one neat thing that we see is that past customers who come back to the store to answer questions actually have a conversion rate typically 2 to 3 times higher than people who are on the site shopping. So that, as a loyalty marketing tool, this seems to be pretty effective in just in driving impulse purchase. Even though people are coming back to answer questions, they're making some purchases while they're there. Now, once that answer's been submitted, of course, it's sent back to the shopper. And here's an example. This was a question I asked on a site that sells boat supplies, boat repair maintenance supplies, Jamestown Distributors. And you can see there's my question, and William provided me with an answer. And of course, in addition to the answer and a photo of the product, there's a great big Buy Now button. So if I hadn't already completed my purchase, I'm going to get a handful of emails like this with the answers over the next few days, actually over the next few hours and minutes even, to bring me back to the store. And even if I'm not ready to buy now, there might be other links in there like see all answers or ask a follow-up to bring me back to the store, because once I'm back on the store, maybe I'll purchase after all. Now we did a little test to look at the difference between using an active outreach model and not using an active outreach model. And what we did was we took 4 stores that use our system with the active outreach model. And in each category, we picked a store from that was using a non-active outreach model in the same category. And for each store within the same category, we asked identical questions about identical items, 4 each per store. So 4 questions per store, 4 stores per system, so that's 16 questions per system. And then we tracked very carefully exactly how long it took for the answers to come back. And here's what we found. Using the active outreach model, 4 hours after those 16 questions were asked, social answers had come in. And the other 2 non-active outreach systems had not produced any answers. 24 hours later, the active outreach approach had produced 81 social answers and none from the non-active outreach model. And even 2 weeks later, where the active outreach approach had produced 117 social answers to those 16 questions, there was only about a half an answer per question using the non-active outreach model. So you can see it makes a huge difference. And even over on the left-hand edge of the scale there, it's not just fast, it's really fast. In fact, what we find on average is that the first social answer typically comes in, typically meaning on average, comes in under 1 hour. And we typically see 4 to 5 social answers within the first 24 hours, and 90% of all of those social questions will receive at least 1 social answer within the first 24 hours. So, fast, multiple, and reliable using active outreach. Now, you might jump at that and say, great, let's do it. But let me say, hold on, it's not that easy just to send out questions to past customers. If you think about it at a high level, what you're doing is putting up a field on your website and letting anyone type anything into it and then taking that anything and mailing it to your past customers. So you need to be super careful to make sure that that all works. And here are just a handful of the things that you need to take into account and be really careful about to make this model work. The kind of approach you take to moderation is typically very different from the kind of approach you take with customer reviews. You need to protect your customers and your brand, so it has to be bulletproof, but it also has to be fast. There's no way that you can get social answers back to a shopper in under 1 hour if it takes a day or two to moderate the question. So that leads to a very different approach to moderation that needs to rely on a whole bunch of automated technology. You also need to distinguish between social and staff questions. It's not just approved or rejected. There's this third category of questions that may be very appropriate to have up on your site, and things you'd want other shoppers to see, but not things that can be emailed to a past customer. So for example, does this come in blue? Not a question you want to email the past customers, but certainly if the staff says, yes, it comes in blue, that's good dialogue to have up on your page. It's good information for future shoppers. So being robust yet fast is one challenge. Another one is protecting your customers by allocating the questions appropriately. You want to make sure that no one customer gets flooded with too many questions. On the other hand, you have some customers who will be happy to answer lots of questions, and you want to give them the opportunity to opt in to get even more. So having really good mechanisms to to allocate questions, rotate within the customer pool, take people out of the pool when needed is important. Another challenge that comes up is with items that have been purchased very few times. That could be either because they're long tail items in your catalog or because they're new items that haven't been purchased many times yet. So there are mechanisms that can help you connect infrequently purchased items to very similar frequently purchased items that can help solve that, but it's an important challenge. Otherwise, you end up disappointing customers by holding out the promise of fast social answers and not delivering them. Another challenge that comes up is achieving both real-time interactivity and inline indexability for SEO. Of course, you want all this great content you're generating to be indexable for SEO, but a lot of approaches, do that in batch feeds that happen periodically, and if you do that, then when somebody posts a question, that you can't show that question right away, or if somebody posts an answer, you can't show that answer right away. And at a time when generations have been trained by Facebook and other social tools to expect sort of things to appear more immediately when they post, that delay model isn't as attractive. So let me show you some of the things that can happen. Here's an example where one of those staff questions, an is it in stock kind of question, slipped through and got sent to Andrew Jensen, who tweeted, I don't mind questions asking past buyers to answer product questions. Just filter out the spam questions. So that's where that really robust moderation is important. Here's a different example. This is a personal story. I was shopping on Williams-Sonoma during the holidays this year. I'm a bit of a foodie, and this is a very fancy nouveau cooking technique called sous vide, and here's an expensive machine I was thinking of getting for the holidays. And I asked a question about it. On November 23rd, I was planning ahead, a rare moment. I got one answer in the end, and I got it on January 1st, which was just way too late to be useful. And in fact, this is the machine I ended up getting, and you can see it looked nothing like that one, and I didn't get it from Williams-Sonoma. There's a steak that I was cooking. That's what happens when you don't give fast answers when people ask questions. If I'd gotten 6 answers saying, yes, it's a whisper quiet and I absolutely love it, I think the odds are I would have gotten that other unit. Here's a different one. I'm going to just pick on Staples a little here with apologies. I submitted a question on Staples, and this is what I got. Thank you for submitting your question. We will process your question. Accepted questions will be posted within 3 to 5 business days. That's just not going to move me towards a fast purchase, and it's a little bit disappointing. I put some energy into writing that question to be told that. Another Staples example here, with apologies. I know it's small, it's hard to read. Where I put that arrow at the top, it says, get answers from real customers and in-house experts. So that's my expectation. But if you look down, every question asked, it has one answer from customer care. So this is not exactly social Q&A. Now, if the intention of the store is, to provide a customer support tool and have customer support answer shopper question, then this is probably fine. But as a social tool, this isn't working. On the other hand, if you get it right, the active outreach model is definitely safe and very effective. I don't want to discourage you by just showing where the sand traps are. As I mentioned, it's very reasonable to expect an 8% average answer rate on those question emails you send out. And we find that the opt-out rate is well under 0.3%. And again, that's opting just out from Q&A, so it's not even having an impact on your marketing list. So that's a pretty strong indication that that's a well-received email when filtered properly. And as I mentioned, the first answer can come in under an hour. 90% of questions receive at least one social answer, and 4 to 5 social answers typically come in within 24 hours. This morning, just for fun, I thought I'd roll the dice and ask a question and see what came back. So this is a site called Leisure Pro. They sell diving gear. And you can see up at the top of the page there, I submitted this question about a underwater rattle for summoning your friends when you're diving together at 10:22. And here's what I got back. At 10:51, I got my first answer. That was 29 minutes after asking the question. At 11:02, 40 minutes later, I got my second answer. At 11:11, 49 minutes later, I got my third answer. At 11:36, an hour and 14 minutes later, I got my fourth answer. And at 12:49, so just a few minutes before we started the webinar, I squeezed in one last one, 2 hours and 27 minutes. So I got 5 answers to that question in 2 hours and 27 minutes from when I asked it. And I went through this pretty quickly, but if you read the dialogue, it's all, the sentiment is all positive. It's not always positive, but it's super helpful. It's, actually I do dive once in a while, and I was only asking this question as a test, but now I'm on the brink of going out and buying one of these just because I've had so much personal and direct customer feedback. Now, I said I'd address what kind of ROI can you expect. There's a few different mechanisms by which social Q&A contributes to ROI. The main one is shopper conversion. This is some data that we measure in our system. On average, about 15% of all orders come from people who interact with the social Q&A system while shopping. And our system actually has the ability to track that. There's code that runs on the order confirmation page, so we can reconcile interaction with Q&A while shopping through to conversion. So that's about 1 in 6 orders was in some way influenced by people interacting with Q&A while shopping. Most of that, of course, is just reading questions and answers that have already been submitted. Some of that is questions that are submitted and answered while that individual is shopping. And then we compare the conversion rate of people who interact with Q&A while shopping to the conversion rate of those who don't. And the conversion rate of those who do ranges from 3 to 8x the baseline. So that's a very high conversion effect. And of course, there are the usual questions around attribution. But even if you're pretty skeptical about attribution, lift effects that high are pretty suggestive of causality, as they say. SEO is another big benefit. If you use ratings and reviews, you'll be familiar with this one. And what we see very reliably is that social Q&A generates about 2 to 3 times the total volume of UGC of customer reviews. And the language used is often very SEO friendly as well. People ask questions like, what's the best rattle to use for diving? And that kind of language is often reflected in the question and answer language. So you're getting, it's good for keyword density. And of course, it's all indexable right on your product detail pages. Loyalty is another one. With an 8% answer rate on those question emails, you're bringing lots of past customers back. And with that 2 to 3 times higher than baseline conversion rate from those customers who are coming back, that's a lot of incremental orders from your past customers that you're bringing back. There's an effect of reducing the call center load, both by answering the question of the shopper who asked it, and also by having that question and answer dialogue right on the product page where future shoppers can refer to it. Then there's a couple other factors. Data collection. One of the neat things about Q&A is it's a chance to collect data from shoppers pre-purchase when they identify themselves while asking a question. So if they don't convert right away, then that becomes profile data you can use to reach out to them in the future. And especially if you use social sign-on as part of that authentication process, you can actually collect some really great data that goes way beyond just name and email. And then, of course, there's insight as well. The kind of questions that people ask pre-purchase tell you something about your merchandising. Customer reviews are, of course, really great and important for telling you about your products and what your customers think of them. But they often don't tell you as much about merchandising because the person isn't evaluating what was on the page when they were shopping. They're evaluating the product that showed up in their, at their home. So there's value there too. And then the last question I wanted to touch on is who's doing it. This is data that came out of a shop.org study done by Forrester Research late in 2011, the State of Online Retailing 2011 report. And what they found was that at that point, 25% of stores were using some form of Q&A. Not all of it's social, but this is Q&A on the product detail page. And another 29% said they were planning to adopt it in 2012. Now, I actually suspect that this may be skewed a little high, that they were probably talking to larger retailers who may be further down the adoption curve. But overall, it suggests that adoption of social Q&A is about where the adoption of customer reviews was in 2008, and on a pretty similar trajectory. I think our view is that by 2014, this is going to be something that will be as standard on e-commerce storefronts as customer reviews is today. So those are the topics I wanted to touch on. I hope you've submitted some questions while we're going through, and if not, it's not too late. Please send them in now, and we'll spend a few minutes going through those.
Thanks, George. Good stuff. We actually have some, you are welcome. We have some questions here. I have actually the same question a few times regarding, will we be making this presentation available for those that attended and want to share internally within their companies?
Yeah, we're going to put this up on SlideShare, and we'll embed it in our on our blog too. So, Kathy, can we send out a note to all the attendees afterwards? Yep. with a link?
Absolutely, perfect. Thanks. We also have a question. Does Turn2 know how often customers who answer a question make another purchase?
Yes. The conversion rate of shoppers who ask a question themselves is, I think it's 4 to 6 times the baseline for the site on average. So it's way higher.
Okay, good, good. And then we have a couple of questions from one of the same attendees. It looks like to be an order here is, how do you, Turn2, get around canned spam when you send out the emails?
Oh, sure. Well, as far as the, let me give two pieces to the answer. When you say what you send out the email, I mean the email is actually coming from the store. At an integration level, we can act as your ESP, or you can use your own ESP, and we can integrate to that. But so it's coming from the store. As far as the permission to do it, I think I mentioned that all of our stores, the stores that use the Turn2 system anyway, treat that email as a marketing email, and they send it only to people who have given the store permission to send them marketing emails.
Okay, great, thanks. And specifically, how does the moderation process work that you touched on?
Good question. That's a big one. That's probably a topic to go into detail on in another webinar. But let me just throw out one particular aspect that we at least think is important in making it work, which is a heavy reliance on automated filtering. As I mentioned, if you need to manually moderate all the questions, there's just no way to get sub 1 hour answers to questions. So at least the way the Turn2 system works is that we've got a whole bunch of different kinds of filters, obviously profanity filters, but that's just the easy one. It's other kinds that relate to negative sentiment words or words inconsistent with your brand value or competitors products. Those kinds of things suggest a question should be hidden until it's gotten manual review. A different kind of filter says, well, this is a question that's appropriate to post, but it's probably a question that should be directed to the staff. So those are questions with words that suggest it relates to, shipping or availability or pricing or something like that. So that ability to have multi-level filtering is important. The way we approach it is also that that's a continuous learning process. So there is a closed feedback loop on that email where customers can say, I don't mind getting shopper questions, I just didn't want to get this shopper question. And you monitor that kind of feedback and use that to help train the system. And then what you find is after just a few weeks, you've got the filters set up so well that virtually nothing that shouldn't get out does get out. And then all you have to do on the moderation side is handle the exceptions. So you just look at the things that the system held for manual review, and what that means is 90% of the stuff is approved automatically, so you get those really fast responses. And in addition, the moderation workload is really low because you only have to do manual review of the exceptions.
Okay. We have just 2 more questions here. One that came in, one of the slides where you referenced the study, is that study available independently? I'm thinking it's more than a screenshot. Question mark.
So Kathy, maybe when we send around the link to the webinar slides, we can include a link to that study, which is also up on our blog, and we've got it in PDF form too. There's a lot more data in that version about how exactly the methodology worked.
Okay, I know that we are passing our time limit here and have already surpassed it, but let me just take one more question here. It was kind of in a sequence order that got put in. Is what is the pricing for the Turn2 system?
It's a annual subscription fee. It's a flat fee, and it's based on the scale of your online business. At the very bottom end, it starts at about $150 a month. Most of the stores that work with us are in the range of sort of mid-hundreds or mid-thousands a month for the service, depending on how big they are.
Okay. So we are, again, to be mindful of the time, we are going to conclude our webinar, and if anyone has any further questions, George can be reached at george@turn2.com, general contact@turn2.com, and as George referenced, we will be sending out an email to all of the attendees so you too can have the webinar presentation at your fingertips. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to hosting you next time. Have a good day.